The avoidant puts on a mask. Outside to the general public, in the workplace with their family and friends, they seem like the most confident, charismatic person in the world. But behind closed doors in the relationship, this is a very insecure person, a person that shuts down with difficult conversations, a person that doesn't open up about feelings, a person that withdraws when things get close, a person that stonewalls whenever there's any disagreement, a person that runs away from love and connection, a person that shows up in a very insecure way behind closed doors with you. But outside to the rest of the world, this seems like the most charming, charismatic, competent person. And the disconnect is so stark. Why can they show up this way with their family, friends, and coworkers? Why can't they show up that way with me? If you're dealing with an avoidant, especially a dismissive avoidant, they put on a mask. And that mask is the mask of confidence, the mask of charisma. They project to the world what they think the world wants to see because they do rely heavily on external validation, and they are people pleasers at their core. This all stems from consistent childhood emotional neglect when they weren't given the love and nurturing that they needed. They personalized it growing up to feel like there's something wrong with them, defective and unlovable. So they have these self-esteem issues hidden below the surface. The way that they learned to get approval was by making other people happy and getting that external validation. Their attachment wounds are not triggered with platonic relationships, with friends and coworkers, so they can really put on the mask quite well. But a romantic partner, especially one that's emotionally available for them, triggers their core wounds, the wound of shame, the wound of defectiveness, feeling like they are broken and defective and unlovable. Because you're consistent, loving, and emotionally available to them, which means that there's a pressure for them to take down their walls. But their subconscious fear is if they lower their walls for you, you're going to figure out you're too good for them. You're going to figure out that they're defective, and you're going to reject and abandon them. It triggers all of their anxieties and all of their insecurities in the relationship. So these don't get triggered in the outside world. If you noticed, early in the relationship, during the shared fantasy phase, because it was a fantasy, their fears hadn't been triggered yet. So they were that charismatic, charming, confident person that they appeared to be early on with you. They only started to withdraw and show their insecurities as the relationship progressed. And they can really show up in a completely different way with you, sometimes even causing arguments out of nowhere, getting completely quiet, ghosting, disappearing, gaslighting. And these are all designed to keep that emotional distance between you and them so they feel safe. Because as long as they have emotional distance, they don't risk exposure for being what they perceive themselves to be as not good enough and not lovable. It's not that they're actually not good enough. It's not that they're actually not lovable. It's just how they perceive themselves to be. So when this person shows up in a vastly different way for you than they do for the rest of the world, no, it's not a reflection of your worth or anything you did wrong. It's a reflection of their deep insecurities, their deep attachment wounds, their lack of self-awareness, and their choices. It's not because of your worth. It's because you are loving and consistent to them. You are emotionally available to them, and that triggers their wounds. That platonic friendship, that coworker, that doesn't trigger their wounds because there's no threat of emotional intimacy and vulnerability in that relationship. But there certainly is that threat with you, which makes you unsafe, and it makes the surface level relationships feel safe. Even in the romantic sense, they feel the most confident and they're able to show up the best when it's surface level only because there's no risk of that vulnerability. When things progress past that surface level is when they shut down and push you away. It's not because of you. Actually, it's not because of anything you did wrong. It's because of all the things you did right. The more loving and healthy you are, the more you show up for them, the more it triggers them. So recognize this is their inability and their lack of capacity. Don't beat yourself up, and certainly don't blame yourself for their maladaptive, unhealthy behavior, because you are not to blame. And blaming yourself only keeps you stuck and prevents you from healing and moving on. Recognize it's them, not you. Be kind to yourself, practice self-empathy, self-compassion, and work towards letting go.